Resurrection students, I'm Shannon Green, one of your student ministries pastors. Here in Explore, we've been, exploring the story of Abraham and his wife, Sarah. Now, they are kind of big deals in the Bible, and their whole story can be found in Genesis chapters 12 through 25. Last session, we learned that God chose them to go on a great adventure to a new land called Canaan. Now, this land would eventually become Israel and the promised land for God's people. Now, they finally made their way to Canaan, and after a brief pit stop in Egypt, they are settling down to make a life for themselves. Little did they know, this was just the beginning of their story. I wonder, have you ever seen those Capital One commercials where they talk about how choosing their credit card is the easiest decision you'll ever make? It's the easiest decision in the history of decisions. There's this one where Charles Barkley is picked first for the kids' basketball game. And the narrator goes, "Now that was an easy decision." It's like a no-brainer decision. He would be the obvious choice to play on your pickup basketball team. Or there's another one where the softball team needs a clutch hit in the bottom of the 9th inning. So who do they ask to be their pinch hitter? Well, Derek Jeter. This is the easiest decision you'll ever have to make. But God has this way of picking the unlikely people, the unobvious choices, the ones that no one else would pick, everyone else passed over, like Abraham and Sarah. Let's read from Genesis chapter 17 and find out why they were unlikely choices to carry out God's plan. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, "I am El Shaddai. Walk with me and be trustworthy. I will make a covenant between us, and I will give you many, many descendants." Abram fell on his face, and God said to him, "But me, my covenant is with you. You will be the ancestor of many nations." So God appears to Abram and said, "I am going to make you the father of a huge nation. You're going to have so many descendants you won't even be able to count them. And you will be the great-great-grandfather to kings and great leaders." And God was going to be there for all of Abram's kids, his grandkids, his great-grandkids, and so on. God chooses Abram and Sarai to be the ancestors of a group of people that God would continue to use to bless the world and others around them. But there was only one problem. Abram and Sarai were old, like really old, far too old to have kids of their own. Abram was 99 years old and Sarai was 89 years old, and they had never had children. They were definitely unlikely choices to be the parents and grandparents of a great nation. Even Abram and Sarah didn't understand God's decision to choose them. See, here's how Abram responded. Abraham fell on his face and laughed. He said to himself, "Can a 100-year-old man become a father, or Sarah, a 90-year-old woman, have children?" But God once again made a promise to Abram and assured him that he was the right choice. But God said, "No, your wife Sarah will give birth to a son for you, and you will name him Isaac. I will set up my covenant with him and with his descendants after him as an enduring covenant." So God essentially says, "I am choosing you, Abraham, and I don't make mistakes." God does not make mistakes when God chooses people. While Abraham and Sarah seemed like unlikely choices, and there were probably better people to pick as the mother and father of a great nation, God chose them because they believed in God and they obeyed. Now I want to pause for a moment to talk about the significance of names in this story. Names were really important in the Bible, and God often changes the names of people after a big moment or a time when they encountered God. So God said to Abram, "Your name will now be Abraham." Abraham means ancestor of a great multitude. God was so sure of the promise he had made with Abraham that God gives him a new name to reflect that promise. Sarai's name was changed to Sarah, and the meaning of her name remained the same. It's princess. But the addition of the AH, the ah, was a sign that she had encountered the Lord, or Yahweh, which is another name for God. And finally, God promises that they will have a son, and his name will be Isaac. Isaac's name means laughter. Isaac's name would be a constant reminder to his parents that they had laughed at God, but it was God who ultimately had the last laugh. Now, a little spoiler alert, Abraham and Sarah do go on to become the parents of a great nation. Through their son Isaac and their grandson Jacob, they went on to have many, many descendants, later known as the Israelites. Now it makes sense why God would have Abraham move to a new land. He would eventually need this land, this space for all of his descendants, which were to be as numerous as the stars in the sky or the sand on the seashore. Well, here's what this means for us. God chooses each of us to carry out God's work and mission in the world. But like Abraham, sometimes we feel inadequate, like we are the unlikely choice. There may be times when we are tempted to laugh at God too and say, "You have got the wrong person. I mean, why would you pick me? Charles Barkley is right over there." Yet we are each chosen to carry out our unique role in God's work in the world. As you head into your small group and your time for discussion, I want you to imagine and think about what it is that God might be choosing you to do. Remember, God doesn't make mistakes, and God has an important role for each of us. I hope you discover what that role might be. Even when we seem like unlikely choices, God is choosing each of us to be a part of the great work that is happening in the world. We'll see you next time.